So many fighters have been very good, but they were being overshadowed by those who were so prominent at the time. They might be overlooked, but when you focus on them individually, you realize they had the skills and they had the talent. But unfortunately for them, they came when there was someone sensational who took the boxing scene by surprise at the moment.
The knockout zone.
Consider the time of Muhammad Ali, and he had people who created sort of a buffer around him. People like George Foreman, people like Joe Frazier, people like Kenny Norton. And now all of these boxers, they tend to overshadow the rest of the boxers that were there at the time. And not only because those boxers were not good, they were actually excellent boxers. It's just that they came at the wrong time. Think about George Chuvalo. He was a very strong boxer, and he had almost the style of Rocky Marciano, but he came at the wrong time. Think about Ron Lyle, a heavy fellow with big punches. He fought great fights, but he came at the wrong time. Another boxer you should think about is Henry Cooper, British heavyweight. He had a dangerous left hook. He even fought Muhammad Ali and dropped him in the 4th round. He was so good. One of those boxers that I believe were overlooked. Davis is not so much overlooked, but he was the strongest, heaviest puncher in the ring at the moment. Any Shavers could knock you out with one big punch, regardless of what moment in time during the fight. It could have been in the 15th round, but he would still knock you out. Going down to the middleweight and welterweight divisions, you had the Fantastic Four: Marvelous Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas the Hitman Hands, Roberto Duran, Hands of Stone. Those fighters were up there, and they tend to overshadow everyone that was there with them during their era. But it doesn't mean that they weren't good fighters at the time. Think about Pepino Cuevas, the Mexican champion who became the WBA welterweight champion. He was such a good fighter. Pepino Cuevas was both southpaw and orthodox, and he carried a big punch as well. He fought against Harold Falbrecht of South Africa, and he knocked him out in style. So Pepino Cuevas is one of the shining stars out there. Think about Vito Antofemo, very strong boxer, even though he was kind of short, but he was very strong, come forward fighter, and he was overshadowed by people like Marvelous Marvin Hagler. Alan Minter was also another good fighter with a good jab, good middleweight. He could fight, but to my opinion, he came when there were excellent fighters ahead of him. Now, think of the time of Mike Tyson. He came and he just took the world by storm. And during that time also, you had people like Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, and there was Lennox Lewis. All of these fighters, they were so prominent that people who came during their time were tended to be overlooked, and yet they were still good fighters. Think about Frank Bruno, the British heavyweight who won the heavyweight title. He knocked out one of the South African great heavyweights, Gerrie Coetzee, in 2 rounds. So Frank Bruno was a force to be reckoned with. Tommy Morrison, powerful fighter, strong fighter, always coming forward, but he came at the time when you had all those great champions. But Tommy Morrison was one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen. Merciless Ray Mercer is another great champion who also came at the time when he could not shine that much, but he was a great champion. Larry Holmes, for a very long period, he stood alone, just winning fights, knocking out opponents. But there were good fighters during his time. That is why he had excellent challenges. David Bay, Gary Cooney, Mike Weaver, all of those fighters were so great. But their only problem, they came when Larry Holmes was in his prime. Coming down to the welterweights, you had Floyd, Money Mayweather, Oscar De La Hoya, Sugar Shane Mosley. Those are big names. I'm thinking here of fighters like Maidana, Ricardo Mayorga, another interesting fighter, more like a street fighter to be. Ricky Head was also a good British fighter. Now think of the time of Vladimir Klitschko, and there you have his brother on the side as well, Vitaly Klitschko. What you would have done when these Klitschko brothers were there. They're so good. Think of James Quick Tillis, a man who could almost move like Muhammad Ali in the ring. So good. David Haye is another good boxer, another good heavyweight. So I would say some fighters would have been the shining stars only if the champion was not there.